Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom and welcome back to today's Daf, which is Pesachim Lamed Zayin. We're at the last line on Lamed Vav Amud Beis. It says, Martan Rabbanan ein oifin pas ava b'Pesach devir Beis Shammai. According to Beis Shammai, one may not produce a thick matzah. We're concerned that since it's going to take a while for it to bake, perhaps during that time it's going to turn into chametz. Ubeis Hillel matir. According to Beis Hillel, it's fine. There's no concern of chametz. V'kama pas ava. To what extent, how thick can that matzah be, according to Beis Hillel? Amar Rav Huna tefach. Up to a tefach. Why? How does he get that shear? Shekein matzinu belechem apanim tefach. Because we find a similar concept by the lechem apanim. So we know that all menachos, lechem apanim included, are meant to be chametz, matzah, can't be chametz. And still we find that the lechem apanim had a thickness of a tefach. So apparently, even bread, matzah, which is a tefach thick, can be free of chametz. Maskef Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef challenged this. How could you compare? Im Amru Bezrizin. If this was allowed by lechem apanim, which was produced by who? By the kohanim, who are diligent, conscientious, and knowledgeable, and careful. Yaimru b'she'enon zrizin. Can that be applied by the commoner, ordinary person, who is not necessarily a zaris? And perhaps his matzah can turn into chametz if he's not careful. Im amru b'pas hamela. This was said, this was allowed by the lechem apanim, which was pas amela. Rashi explains based on the Mishnah Menachos, they would go ahead and bang the wheat and bang the dough, make sure it's properly refined and properly kneaded, so that bakes effectively. Can this be applied to ordinary bread, ordinary matzah, which doesn't have this element, and perhaps takes longer to bake? And if it's going to be thick, you're going to compound the concern. If this was allowed by the lechem apanim, which is baked using super dry wood, can this be applied to ordinary wood, which is perhaps still a bit moist? If this was said in the Beis Hamikdash, which had a properly heated oven, which was heated throughout the entire day, prepared for the menachos and for the breads, so it was a superheated oven. Can this be applied to just an ordinary oven, which is perhaps not as hot? If this was said when it comes to a tano in the Beis Hamikdash, which was made out of metal, which was a proper conductor and conduct high heat, can this be applied to ordinary tano shel cheres, which perhaps isn't that effective? You can't compare one to the other. Let's take a look at Rashi up on top of the Amud. V'kama pas of a tefach, ba'afilu hachi, even a tefach wide, shora Beis Hillel, aval tfei tefach loy, but not past the tefach. How does it get to tefach? Shekematzina b'lechem apanim shu asur lo v'chametz. K'tamrin b'menachos. Kol ha'mincha shetakrivu l'rabis lechem apanim l'chimutz la'ashora shlo echmitzu. We have a lav that all menachos, including lechem apanim, must be non-chametz material. Even so, oivi doifneis of tefach. The thickness of its walls were a tefach. How does Rashi know? Dahainu lechem shoy lo panim. Lechem apanim has to have a face, has to have a flap. Ve'im panim pchusim mitefach. And we know from elsewhere, Gemara Sukkah proves this, that the term panim must be at least a minimum of a tefach in size. So the side flap, the face of the lechem apanim, needed to be at least a tefach in thickness, and we see there's no concern of chametz. So this was Rav Huna. Rav Yosef challenged. Im amru v'tiru oivi tefach. If this was applied by the lechem apanim, which was given over to this reason, kohanim shibekim b'shimurayim, they're experts in ensuring that it doesn't turn into chametz, shlayachmetz. Yatiru l'chol adam m'sheinaz reason. Can this be applied to an ordinary person? If this was said by pasam mela, she'enam maheres lahachmetz, shamelasa makvasa, this treatment that it undergoes prevents it from becoming chametz. Amela breiruk is nanikal menachos tunin shloish meis shifa v'chamish meis b'ita, different ways of banging and kicking it. So this process would make it more refined and allow it to bake effectively. If this was applied by Tanur Cham, using a super hot oven, B'chol Yom Tamid Ha'imasikin Tanur Shamigdash La'afiyas Monachis V'lachmi Toida. So the oven of the Beis Hamikdash was heated throughout the day, ready to make Monachis, Lachmi Toida. So it was constantly hot, as opposed to this oven here, which was a cold oven, which he's now heating. Perhaps it won't bake so effectively. And that delay, added with the fact that it was a thick matzah, will delay matters even more and produce chametz. So as opposed to the Tanur Cham in the Beis Hamikdash, which was v'shamatecha soya made of metal, k'tamnim v'zocham perik tam chatzis. Likewise, in the Beis Hamikdash, you have another advantage. Beitz miveshim, it was dry wood. Shei mevin oisar mimoisa chama, because the wood in the Beis Hamikdash was collected throughout the summer months. K'tamnim v'tanis. Mechamisha asa ba'av ve'elach, from the 15th day to ba'av and on, they would stop collecting firewood for the Beis Hamikdash. Why? Tashash koicha shel chama. The heat coming from the sun wasn't as intense any longer. And therefore they wouldn't chop any longer firewood for the Mizbeach, because they wanted to make sure that the wood is truly dry through and through. So once the temperature out there started cooling down, the sun wasn't as powerful, they weren't sure that the firewood would be dry through and through, and they would stop the collection at that point. So we see that they use eitzim mivation. So we have 5 advantages, 5 benefits that were found in the Beis Hamikdash as opposed to the ordinary common oven baking process, and therefore you can't necessarily compare the two things. That was Rav Yosef's challenge. So how could we allow the matzah on Pesach to be so thick, up to a tefach? Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah Ba'aba, She'ilis es Rebbe biyichud. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked his Rebbe, says, I asked my Rebbe, biyichud, in private. I asked him very clearly, because here's going to come a big chiddush in the Pshat and the Brisa. So he's highlighting the fact that it was a clear, direct question, and there was nobody else around, so it was certainly my Rebbe who told me the answer. Who was my Rebbe? Umanai Rav. So Rav was the Rebbe of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Ikad Amri. There's another version of what happened. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, but Abba Amar Rav. So according to this, Rabbi Yirmiyah was quoting his Rebbe Rav, and Rav was the one who posed the question. She'ilah says, Rebbe biyichud. I asked my Rebbe biyichud. Who's the Rebbe? Umanai Rabbeinu HaKadosh. So Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Danasi, was the Rebbe of Rav. So Rav posed the question to Rebbe. My pas ava. What is the definition of pas ava in this brisa? What are Beis Hillel coming to allow? And he responded, it's not referring to thickness. Pas meruba. We're speaking about a large quantity of bread, of dough, of matzah that he's baking at once. And the point is that Beis Shammai are concerned about unnecessary tircha. You can't go ahead and produce a large amount of matzah. We're speaking about thin matzah. No chametz concern. There's a tircha concern. So on Yom Tov, you're not meant to do this. Whereas Beis Hillel hold, there's no concern. And some Farshim explain, because when you have an oven full of loaves of bread, in this case it's matzah, everything in there benefits from the fact that the oven is filled and the heat is intense. So there is a benefit. There's a purpose in baking a lot of bread at once. So that's the point of machlokes. It's not thickness, rather it's the quantity, how much you're baking. My pas ava pas merubah. My korele pas ava. So why is the Brisa refer to it as pas ava? Thick. Mishum de nefisha belisha. Because when you bake a lot of bread, once you make a large sized dough. So it's referring to a large sized dough producing lots of matzahs. But Asr Tana, in the location of this Tana, of the Brisa here, the pas meruba, pas ava korele. They refer to lots of bread with the term pas ava. That's all he's referring to. A large amount of bread, rather than the thickness, the size, the shape of the bread itself. Says it on my time. Okay, so what's the concern according to Beishamai? Why should you refrain from doing this? So if it's a tircha concern, because this large breaking process involves great exertion, we don't allow it on Yom Tov. But it's not a chametz concern. So why does the Brisa apply this halacha specifically to Pesach? I feel Yom Tov Nami. This would apply to any ordinary Yom Tov. It's a tircha concern, not a chametz concern. Ein a chanami, you're right. V'hai Tana b'Yom Tov shel Pesach koi. This Tana happened to be speaking on Yom Tov. So he was teaching the halacha on Pesach, b'Yom Tov shel Pesach. And that's why he referred to Pesach. He said on Pesach you can't bake a lot of bread, a lot of matzah, because he happened to be standing on Pesach. But of course, it's a universal concept which applies to every Yom Tov. Tani Namni Hacha, we have a support from the Brisa that it's a Yom Tov concern. One cannot go ahead and bake Passover on Yom Tov. So clearly it's not a Pesach concern. It's a Tircha concern, and it applies to any Yom Tov. B'sil Matir, and they allow baking lots of matzah, lots of bread, even on Yom Tov. So according to the conclusion of Gemara, Beis Hillel are allowing a large quantity, but not necessarily thick matzah. Therefore, in halakha it's brought down, we're meant to prefer thin over thick. So we're meant to bake our matzahs as thin as we could to avoid any concern of chimetz. Tan Rabbanan, yoitzin bepas nekia ubahadra. One is yoitzin by eating matzah, which was made from clean, high quality refined flour, ubahadra, or from whole grain flour, ubisrikin hamatzuyar bepesach. And even using matzah, so stricken is these matzahs hamatzuyar, which were designed. So even this type of matzah is suitable for matzah smitzvah. He eats it, he's yoytze. Afal b'sha amru, even the Chacham said, ein oisen stricken hamatzuyar bepesach. We're not meant to produce these matzahs which have designs. The concern is that the designing process delays the baking process, and it can turn into chametz. So l'chatchila, don't do it. But b'di'evid, if one eats it, he's yoytze the mitzvah of matzah on Pesach. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Says Rabbi Yehuda, davar zeh shal baisos ben zoinin l'chachamim. Baisos ben zoinin asked the chachamim regarding this halacha. Mipnei ma amru ein oisin srikin hamatzuyar mepesach. Why? Why did the chacham say you're not meant to do this on Pesach? Amru lois, the chacham responded, what's wrong with designed breads? Mipnei sha'isha shaya aleh. We're concerned that the Isha who's designing this bread waits on it and delays, and due to that delay, it can turn into chametz. Amar lahem, so Baisis responded, there's a way out. There's a way to circumvent this concern. Efshar yasena b'tfus. A person go ahead and form the design into put it into a tfus, into a mold, and just stamp it onto the dough, kavan, straight away, directly, easily, quickly, without any delays. Just have a pre-designed form and use it in a way that it doesn't delay the production process. Amar Loi, Chacham responded, we can't allow it. We have to issue a wall-to-wall universal issa. Why? Yoimru kalasrikin asur, because if we allow this fellow to use his mold, people are going to say, look, all srikin are asur. Usriki baisus matar, and the srikim of this baisus fellow are mutar because he has a form. They won't realize why this one's mutar, this one's asur, because Rashi explains most bakers don't have this type of mold. So they won't realize why is it that everybody's asur and this one's mutar. They'll get confused, and it can bring about a mechshol. People will no longer differentiate. They'll say, well, you see, his srikin amutter, apparently there's no concern. So according to this version of the Gemara, the way the Chacham responded to Baisos indicates that they issued an absolute isser for anybody to go ahead and design his matzah on Pesach. We're concerned about delay, and we don't make any exceptions. Even if a person has a form, Loy plug. Omar Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok. Pamachas nechnasti. There was once a time that I followed Achar Abba. I followed my father. Lebeis Rabbi Gamliel, into the home of Rabbi Gamliel. They view lefanam stricken amatzuyon b'Pesach, and they served him these designed matzahs. And what's Pesach? Oh, Marty. So I turned to my father. Abba, loikach amr chacham. Didn't Chacham say when I'm meant to bake this type of matzah? Ein oisin stricken amatzuyon b'Pesach. So why are they producing this stricken amatzuyon? Amar Ali. So he turned to me and he said, "B'nei, my son, it's not universal. Why shall kol adam amru?" Chacham did not refer to the srikin which are designed and baked by the commoner, who's not so meticulous about designing his thing properly, and doesn't lead to considerable delay. Elo shel nachtoimin amru. They only refer to the srikin which are produced by the commercial bakers, who are concerned about the designs to make sure it's perfect and professional looking. And that truly delays the baking process. But just an ordinary commoner has no concern. Ikadami, there's another version of his response. They said like this: Hachi Karmeli, lo yishal nachtoim amru. Actually, the Issur did not apply to the ones produced by the nachtoimen, because since they're professionals and they can just do it quickly, as Rashi points out, they have molds. So there's no concern of delay. Ela shel kol adam. Rather, it applied to a commoner who doesn't have that ability and will delay matters and creates a chametz concern. So according to this, it won't necessarily be compatible with the earlier Gemara that the Issur applies to all equally. We draw a distinction between the nachtaim and the kol adam, one way or the other. Amar Rabbi Yesi, oisen striken kamin rakikin. You meant to know that you may go ahead and design these striken if they are thin in size. However, you can't do the striken if they're thick in size, because the fact that it's thick, compounded by the fact that you're delaying the process by designing it, creates a chametz concern. So in summary, we learned a brisa that we're not meant to make striken hametzuyor on Pesach. According to the initial chachamim, this applies to all equally. We don't differentiate. According to the story involving our Tzaddik's father, we do differentiate between the nachtaim and kol adam. According to one version, the nachtaim is mutter, kol adam is aser. According to the next version, the nachtaim was actually aser because he delays matters, and kol adam are mutter. Rabbi Yesi added, this only applies to a thick matzah, a gluska, but rikikin, which are thin in any case, so this slight delay won't pose any chametz concern. Continues the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanim, Hasuv Gonim. Now we're going to speak about the true definition of the word lechem. So matzah needs to be lechem oini. We know that for chiyuv challah, it needs to be lechem. We learn from the pasuk ba'achalchem mi lechem ha'aretz. So what exactly is considered lechem? Says the brayso Hasuv Gonim. We have bread which is a spongy material. Vaduv shanan was fried in oil. Iskiritin. This is a soft, a liquidy batter. V'chala samasras, a challah which was fried in a pan. V'amaduma, or bread made from dough which is meduma. Meduma means that there's some truma mixed in. In all these cases, pturim menachala. They're exempt from challah. Why? Let's see Rashi inside. So you'll notice the wide lines on bottom. It's right in the middle of that top wide line. The first wide line. Pturim menachala, explains Rashi, D'chsiv ba'achlachem mi lechem aretz. It needs to be lechem, to be chayv and challah. V'hani, all these examples listed in the Gemara, lav lechem ninu. They're not regarded as true lechem. They're baked, they're cooked. They're not the true lechem in its true form. Soon, the Gemara will explain the exact reason. So that applies to the sivganan, the divshanan, the iskaritin, the chalas hamesras. What about the meduma? Says Rashi about meduma. Chulin shenafel truma l'soichan pater. The terima trumuksiv. Torah says, separate a portion, a piece of dough, as challah, terima truma, v'loi shekvar hoya truma, as opposed to something which is already truma, such as this meduma, which has a din of truma. in which case it's pater from challah. Let's go back to the Gemara. My chalas hamasris. What exactly is this? Amar Rabbi Levi is a cholod shel balabatim. It's some type of scalded flour, so it's not a true bread. The balabatim make this type of baked good, which is not. Rashi says it doesn't have the tikkun lechem, wasn't produced like a loaf of bread. So it doesn't have the bread form. The bread, it doesn't have the description of bread, the design of bread, and therefore it's part of Amchal. Continues the Gemara. Now let's go back to the entire list. Sivganan, Duvshanan, Iskarit, and Chalas HaMashras. What's really wrong with them? Why don't they constitute lechem? We have two pshatim. Omer Shlakish. Halolu mas ilfasein. You know what's wrong with them? Because they're not oven baked. They're baked, they're cooked in a pot. Ilfa is a type of pot. It doesn't have the same effect. It doesn't produce the same product as an oven. Lechem needs to be oven baked. Therefore, they're pot of Amchal. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, mas ilfas chayavin. You meant to know that something baked in an ilfas is chayav and chala. You don't need to have a tanner. So Rashi brings that according to Shlakish, the pasuk says, "Lach mechem betanur echad." Lechem needs to be produced by a tanner. According to Rabbi Yehuda, not necessarily. Even a pot can produce bread, can bake bread. So it's a pot. So it's being used as an oven in this case. So that can't be the reason why these things are exempt from challah. Rather, v'halalu she'asam b'chama. All these products, all these listed in the brises of gun, etc., the reason why they don't constitute lechem is because they were produced using the heat of the sun, b'chama, solar heat, which doesn't produce bread. Apparently the effect of heat inside the oven is very different than just using sunlight. We find a similar concept in Gemara Shabbos for bishul, that the true melach of bishul is only if you're using heat of a fire. But using solar heat apparently doesn't have the same effect and is not considered bishul. It's not the derech bishul. Halachically, it's not considered bishul. So likewise here, when it comes to afiyah, says Rabbi Yehuda, the true lechem needs to be oven baked. It needs to be baked using heat of a fire, but not solar heat. Says the Gemara, is that the case? That according to Shlakish, even bread baked in an ilfas constitutes lechem? Meisvei, hasuv ganan, vadav shanan, va'is karitin. So it depends. Asan be ilfas, chayavin. If you baked them in a pot, they're chayav and chal. V'cham aptur. If you baked them in the sun, they're potter. Tiyufte, they're b'shem malakish. There's a kash of b'shem malakish. This brisa tells us that even in a pot is considered a proper baking process. Amar ula, amar lach b'shem malakish. He's going to respond like this. This brisa is speaking about a unique case where he's using the pot like an oven. He's preheating the pot and then pasting his dough, in which case it's served like an oven. I agree. That's considered lechem. Hachab ma'eskinan was speaking about a case shir tiach u'b'sayif hidbik. First he heated up that pot. So now we have a preheated pot u'b'sayif hidbik, and then he pasted his dough. So now it's functioning like an oven. And of course it's considered lechem. It's no different than an ordinary oven. Aval, says the Gemara, hidbik u'b'sayif tiach. But if you would have reversed the method, first pasted his dough, and then heated up that pot. What is the halacha there? You're going to say it's potter? According to Rish Lakish, if it's preheated, it's considered like an oven. But if you first pasted the dough and then put the pot on the flame, that's not considered a proper baking process. And that's considered like cooked. And therefore he's potter. If that's true, adetani sefer. So when the brisa proceeded, the brisa that we just mentioned, began by saying, well, if it's asay be'ilfas, it's chayiv. If it's asay b'chama, using the heat of sun, asan b'chama p'tur, then it's potter. Lifleg v'listen b'dida. The brisa could have just made a split, drew a line within the pot itself. Sometimes it's potter, sometimes it's chayiv. If your suggestion is true, that even within a pot, it can be chayiv. It just depends on the method. Preheated is chayiv. Post-heated is potter. So why did the Brisa have to look for an example of ptur from the cham? The Brisa could have made a distinction within the pot itself. Lifleg v'listen b'dedo. B'medva mamur. When is this dough baked in a pot chayiv? Kigoin shirtiach. L'b'seif hidbik. If he preheated the pot, aval hidbik. L'b'seif rtiach ptur. But if you reverse the order, first pasted his dough and then was martiach the pot, it would be pot. So why did the Brisa present it like that? Answers the Gemara, Chasur mechser v'chitani. The Brisa is meant to be learned as though it's missing some words, and it says like this: B'med v'mamur. When is this dough chayiv and chala? Shiratiach al basayf hidvik. When he first preheated that pot and then pasted his dough. So the Brisa says, Ason be'ilfas chayavin. It's specific to this case. A preheated pot. Aval but but if you reversed matters, first pasted his dough and then heated the pot. Nasa kami shasan macham upturn. That's as though he baked his dough in the oven, using solar heat, bachama, and of course it's pot. Let's see Rashi inside. So again, back to the wide lines, and the third wide line, towards the end of that third wide line, mas ilfasen. This is Rish Lakish's pshat. What's wrong with all these materials, all these baked goods? Because they're masa ilfas. They're not oven baked. They're baked in an ilfas. L'fichach lav lechemo. The kasava ain't lechem, ela ofa bitaner. It needs to be strictly oven baked. K'techsiv lach mechem bitaner echad. That's Rish Lakish's approach. Rabbi Yehuda says even a masa ilfas is considered lechem. So what's wrong with these items? V'alolu lachab turim. L'fisha asan b'cham v'lebor. Because he baked them using the sun, as opposed to an ordinary fire. And the Gemara concludes that according to Rish Lakish, sometimes, even within a pot, it's considered a proper baking process. Shiratiach ilfas, he first preheated the ilfas, v'achakach hidbuk b'alechem, then pasted his dough. Why is this different? As Rashi, the havalei ke'ein masataner, hilka chayavin. It's reminiscent of the oven baking process. Even according to Rish Lakish, is chayiv and chala. Let's go back to our Gemara. It says about 4 lines from the bottom, Tashma. Let's bring another kasha on Rish Lakish. Yoitzim b'matzah hina. Person's yoitzah is mitzvahs matzah, even if that matzah is hina, it's not fully baked. Ubematzah suya bilfas. Likewise with matzah, which was produced in a pot. Now, just one point that Pesach mentions that when we speak about ilfas, we're speaking about dry heat. There's no liquid in that pot. So that explains why Rabbi Yehuda holds it's like an oven. Because although it's a pot, but it's dry heat, and it's baking like an oven. So the Brisa here clearly tells us that even matzah, made in ilfas, is considered lechem. How do you know it's considered lechem? As Rashi points out, because matzah needs to fit the bill. It's to be called lechem oini. So apparently, even something baked in a ilfas is considered lechem. This is a kasha Rish Lakish. Hachanami here too is speaking about this case, shir tiach l'basef hidbik. He first preheated the pot and then added the dough. And even according to Rish Lakish, this is reminiscent of the oven baking process and counts. It says the word my matzahina. What exactly is this matzahina? Meaning, how well baked must it be in order to be considered lechem? Can't use dough as matzah, it's not lechem. So it's partially baked, it's not completely baked through and through. But how baked is it to be considered matzah? My matzahina, Amar Vidam Shmuel, this is the test. Kol shepersa, if he goes and he splits the matzah, he doesn't notice any strings, any fibers of dough pulling. So that indicates that it's sufficiently baked, it's adequately baked and considered lechem. The same formula would be applied to lachmei toida. So these are the breads which you bring together the carbon toida, and there as well you need to have lechem. So if it's not fully baked, we take a look at the bread and we apply this test, this formula, and if we find it to be baked enough, there are no strings pulling, it's kosher to be used for the toida. Pshita, of course. Hachal lechem ksiv, v'achal lechem ksiv. Here by matzah, the Torah uses the word lechem, and likewise over there by Torah, the Torah uses the word lechem. Why would I think to differentiate between one and the other? What's Rava's chiddush? Ma'udatema, there is a chiddush. Perhaps I would think, hoylu ksiv, v'ikir v'menu echad, mikol carbon. Torah says that you meant to separate one from every type of bread. So you have 4 different categories. 3 actually are matzah and 1 is chametz. So the Korban Torah has those 4 different types of breads. 10 breads in each category. You meant to take one of those 10 and give it to the kohen. So we learn from there, Gemara Menachos, echad means it has to be one single entity. Echad shalitel paras. Can't take a slice. V'hacha, in this case where it's not fully baked, in which case when you hold on to one side of the bread, the whole thing drops and breaks and cracks. So perhaps it's not considered to be one single entity. It's not a sholem. Come on, the priest of dam. Perhaps we treat it like it's sliced up, and therefore it can't be used for toida. Because as we just said, the lachmi toida need to be whole entities. What's the raya? Because the 1 out of 10 that you give into the kohen is a single entity. Apparently, we're speaking about entities, whole entities. And this partially baked bread, since it falls apart on you, perhaps it's not considered echad, kamashmon. That's Rava's chiddush, that it's enough baked to be considered echad, considered to be one single bread, one single entity. Okay, getting back to the machlokes between Reish Lakish, who said that for it to be considered bread, it has to be oven baked. A suya be'ilfus is not considered lechem, whereas Rabbi Yehuda maintains even bread baked in a ilfus is considered properly baked and has the status of lechem. Meisvei, we have a kasha from a brisa, actually a mishnah, on Rabbi Yehuda. Says the mishnah, Ha'me'isa. If we have this scalded flour, so you take some flour and you pour it onto boiling water. The question is regarding chiv chal. This finished product, which was never really formed into dough and then baked. The product was completed skipping that interim stage, that dough stage. It went straight from flour to a finished product. So is that considered lechem? They say no. They say it's chayv and challah. Another example, very similar example, chalita. Another form of scalded flour, where you take the boiling water and you pour it on the flour. So me'isa was the flour on the water, chalita is the water on flour. Says the Gemara, Ezo me'isa ve'ezo chalita. What exactly is me'isa and what is chalita? A slight difference. It achieves the same result, but using a different method. Ha'me'isa is kamach, shal gabe megloshin. Kamach which is poured on the boiling water. Ha'chalita is megloshin shal gabe kamach, boiling water poured on flour. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yisrael, Mishum Aviv. So what is the halacha? We have Beisham, Beisil, and we have another sheet. Rabbi Shmuel quoted his father like this: Zev is a lifter. In both cases, whether the me'isa or the chalita, that's not considered proper lechem, and it's pata from challah. Ve'amila, there's another version that his father said, Zev is lechiv, both are chayiv. V'chacham ra'ayim, here's another shita, echad zeh v'echad zeh. Whether it was water on top of flour on top of water, asan be'ilfes pata. If it was formed, if it was baked, if it was created, cooked in a pot, it's pata. So whether we're speaking about this scalded flour, or even a ordinary dough, but if it was baked in a pot, it wasn't oven baked, it's pata from chal. That's not called lechem. Be'tan chayiv. However, if it was oven baked, so even if you take the scalded flour, but then you complete the process in an oven, that's considered lechem and chayiv. Now, before we get into the kasha on Rabbi Yehuda from this brisa, let's first analyze the wording of the brisa. You'll notice that the brisa begins with a double machlekes between Shammai and Beisil. When it comes to me'isa, Beishamai say pater, and Beisil say chayiv. When it comes to Chalita, Beishamai say Chayiv, and Beisil say Potter. Now, what's the difference? They're both achieving the same results. It's just a different method that's being used. So what's the difference between one or the other? Ma'ishna Me'isa, or Ma'ishna Chalita. Amar Vida Mashmol, V'chein Amar Rabbi Yehuda, some Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yechon, V'tema, some say Rabbi Shimon Levi. You're right. They're both one and the same. Halachically, Me'isa and Chalita achieve the same results and have the same halach. K'machlekes bezu, the same machlekes that applies to Me'isa, for instance, kach machlekes bezu will apply to Chalita. So Beis Shammai may still maintain their positions consistently. Whether it's Me'isa or Chalita, it's the same halach. If that's the case, we seem to have a problem with our Brisa, with our Mishnah. But Tavra, we have a contradiction, because initially the Mishnah begins by saying, Ha Me'isa, what is halacha? Beis Shammai Potter, B'sil Chayiv. And as we just said, that it's irrelevant whether it's Me'isa or Chalita. Right? They're both boiled, scalded flour. So whether you place the flour first or the water first, it's the same halacha in both. So according to the first presentation, Beis Shammai say Potter, B'sil say Chayiv. But then the Mishnah continues, Ha Chalita, Beis Shammai say Chayiv, B'sil say Potter. Now, once again, if Chalita and Me'isa are synonymous, so here we have a contradiction. Because in the first presentation, Beis Shammai say in both cases, Potter, B'sil say Chayiv. In the second presentation of the Mishnah, Beis Shammai say Chayiv, B'sil say Potter. And again, we're referring to both scenarios. Their respective shittas apply to Chalita and Me'isa alike. So it's an open contradiction in the Brisa, in the Mishnah. But Tavra says the Gemara, you're right. The Mishnah is simply presenting two different versions of the Machlekes B'Sham Mesila. Misha Shanazu, the one who presented, who taught the first version, that Beis Shammai say Potter, B'sil say Chayiv, and indeed that refers to whether it's Me'isa or Chalita. Lo Shanazu, he was not the same Manda Omar who presented the second version of the Machlekes. According to Beis Shammai it's Chayiv, according to B'sil it's Potter, and of course that applies to both cases equally. So we really have two versions of the Machlekes B'Sham Mesila. Whether it's Me'isa or Chalita, it's irrelevant. Boiled, scalded flour, what is halacha? According to one version, Beis Shammai say Potter, B'sil say Chayiv. According to the other version, just the opposite. So we actually have 5 different Manda Omrim in this, 5 different Shittas in this Brisa. We have Beis Shammai and Mesil, 2 versions. We have 2 versions of Rabbi Yossi, and we have the Chachamim. So that's the Pshat in the Brisa. Okay, getting back to our discussion. That Rabbi Yechon is the one who holds that something baked in a pot, that doesn't constitute true baking and is not considered true lechem. K'tanim is. At any rate, the Brisa says, V'chachamim oimim, echad zeh v'echad zeh, whether it's Me'isa or Chalita, what is the halacha? She'asam be'ilfas potter. If he baked it in a pot, it's potter. B'tano chayiv. If he oven baked it, it's chayiv. Tiftu Rabbi Yehuda, Tzakash Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that even something baked in a pot is considered lechem. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Tanai. You're right, it's actually a machlekes Tanai. So true, the Chachamim here hold that something baked in a pot is not considered lechem, but I actually found another shita which considers it lechem. Perhaps, I would think, I would ponder, to say that something which is scalded, me'isa v'chaluta, is considered lechem and chayv and chala. Tamulem lechem. So Tanakama maintains that unless it's properly baked, it's not considered lechem. Rabbi Yehuda ein lechem ela afa b'tanur. You meant to know that lechem, the true definition of lechem, only applies to something baked in an oven. So what do you mean? It's exact repetition of Tanakama. Isn't that exactly what Tanakama said? Rabbi Yehuda hainu Tanakama. Where's the machlekes here? They're both saying the same thing. It needs to be oven baked to be considered lechem. There must be some nafkamina, some halachic difference. Elalav, you must say, mas ilfas ikbanayu. That this very discussion of ours regarding bread baked in an ilfas, that is the point of contention. Explains the Gemara. Tanakama savar mas ilfas chayavin. He holds that, yeah, if it's scalded, me'isa, chalita, that's potter, as he clearly says. But Let's say you take that scalded flour, that mush, and you put it into a pot afterwards. That's okay. Or if you take any dough, for that matter, and place it in a pot, and then cook it within the pot, it's chayiv. So according to Tanakama, only if it's just scalded, but once you put it in a pot and bake it there, it's okay. It's considered lechem. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, Rabbi Yehuda says no. It needs to be specifically oven baked, as he clearly says, right? He says, Ein lechem, ela ha'ofen betana. So according to him, Rabbi Yehuda Savar, mas ilfas turn. Anything baked in something other than an oven is potter. So here we have Rabbi Yehuda. And my shita is in line with Rabbi Yehuda. That's Rabbi Yehuda speaking. So that's more not necessarily. Why? Perhaps that's not the point of machlekes here. The kuli alma mas ilfas ptur. Something baked in ilfas is potter. So what's the machlekes here? We're speaking v'hacha kigon shechazer v'afa betana kumiflegi. We're speaking here about a case where he took this material, this dough which was baked, which was cooked in a pot, and placed it in a proper oven. So it completed the baking process properly. The question is that going to make up for lost ground? The fact that the process completes properly, does that give it a din lechem or not? That's the point of contention between Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda. Tanakama savar, kiven shechazer v'af betaner. Since he came back and placed it into an oven, lechem kirin beit, it's considered lechem. So although initially he cooked it, he baked it in a pot, but since he completed the process in an oven, the gemar is what determines and it's considered to be lechem. And that explains why Tanakama says like this: Mi'isa v'chaluta. So the boiled, the cooked flour, that's not chayiv, that's not lechem. But the wording of Tanakama implies that if he would have placed it in an oven and concluded the baking process in a proper oven, that's called lechem. So that's according to Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, no. Ein lechem ela ha'afet betana mikar. The only thing that you consider lechem is something whose entire baking process, from beginning to end, occurred in a proper oven. And in this case, since initially he didn't bake it in an oven, lav lechemu. It's not considered lechem. Amar Rava, my time of Rabbi Yehuda. What is Rabbi Yehuda's reason? The chsiv, it's based on a pasuk. Ba'afu eser nashim lach machem b'taner echad. So bread is meant to be baked consistently in one oven. So from the beginning to the end of the baking process, it's meant to be found in an oven. Not begin in a pot and then end in an oven. Lechem afay b'taner echad, kari lechem. V'she'ein afay b'taner echad, ein kari lechem. So in summary, we had a kasha on Rabbi Yechon. Rabbi Yechon was the one who said that even something which is non-oven baked is considered lechem, even something baked in a pot. And we had a kasha from the Chachamim who told us that only something baked in a tanner is chayiv, b'chala. So Rabbi Yechon responded, we're actually smachlish tanoim. True, the Chachamim there say that something baked in a pot is potter, but I have Rabbi Yehuda, who seems to hold that even something baked in a pot is considered proper lechem. The more responded, not necessarily, because perhaps the discussion in this price, most recent price, between Tanakam and Rabbi Yehuda, wasn't revolving around something baked in a pot. All agree perhaps that's not considered lechem. That's not true baking. That doesn't make lechem. We're speaking that it concluded the process in a oven. Oh, so according to Tanakama, that's enough. And that's called lechem. According to Rabbi Yehuda, since the baking process wasn't initiated and completed inside the tanner, rather it began in the pot and then in the tanner, we learn from the pasuk, that's not called lechem. Let's take a look at Rashi inside. So it's around the midpoint of the Amid. Rashi begins with shechazar v'afam b'tanner. So we're discussing a case where he went ahead and took the same dough and put it back in the tanner. Lamas ilfas, right? This dough which was first baked in a pot, and he placed it back in the oven. V'acha kamer tanakam. Talmud loyma lechem. So these scalded materials, these cooked flour, that's not called lechem. V'hanig lav nechem nenu. They're just cooked in water. Same thing would apply to something baked in a pot. That's not called lechem. Shehidbik or v'sevretiach nami lav lechem nenu. Takes a pot and then pastes his dough and then heats up the pot. That's not called lechem. So that's granted. Aval chazav afi betaner. But however, we have a diuk. If you would take that same material and place it in an oven, lechem karina base, certainly that would be called lechem. So that's Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, no. Offer betaner echad bina. V'loy b'shnei tanurin. It can be produced using a pot and an oven. So it doesn't work, and that's why it's not called lechem. So in conclusion, we discussed the exact description and definition of the word lechem pertaining to chiyuv challah, pertaining to lechem oini, matzah on Pesach. We're not like this. All agree, bread produced b'chama, using heat emanating from the sun, solar heat. All agree that's not called lechem. What about bread baked in a pot? Now we're speaking that the pot was not preheated, because if it was preheated, all agree that's called lechem because it's functioning like an oven. So we're speaking that it was hidbik. First he pasted the dough and then hirtiach. He heated up that pot. According to Rish Lakish, that's not considered lechem. It needs to be oven baked. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it is. We proceeded with chalita, this flour which was boiled. There are two versions, the chaluta and the meisa. And we had a brisa which had many shitas. We had Besham Besilal, two versions of those shitas. We had Rabbi Yossi, two versions of that. And we have Chachamim, who say that unless you take something and actually bake it in an oven, it's going to be pata from challah. So if this boiled flour was just baked in this, cooked in this pot, or an ilfas, then there's no chiyuv challah. But if you should take that very same material and then place it in an oven to conclude the baking process, that would be considered challah, and that takes us to the next discussion. If it takes any type of dough, whether it was boiled, scalded, cooked, etc., and then concludes the baking process in a tanner, according to Tanakama, that's considered lechem. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's not, because the entire baking process did not take place b'tanner echad. And we learned about matzah hina, which is the partially baked bread. This applies to matzah, which needs to be lechem oini. It applies to the lechem of toida, which needs to be baked, and also, as the Gemara says, needs to be one unit. The halacha there is that if he conducts the following test, he pulls it apart and sees no chutin nimshach, no strings being pulled apart, then he knows that it's adequately baked, and it's considered lechem, as pertaining to matzah, lechem oini, and also pertaining to lachmei toida. Continues the Gemara. Yosef Rabba, Rav Yosef, Achoyred Rabbi Zera. So Rabba, Rav Yosef was sitting behind Rabbi Zera. V'yasser Rabbi Zera kamed Ula. Rabbi Zera was sitting in front of Ula. Ula was the Rebbe. Amar le Rabba Rabbi Zera. So Rabba turned to Rabbi Zera, who was sitting in front of him, and he said like this: Boy minei Ula, please ask Ula the following shaila. Hidbik mibifnim v'yirtiach mechutz ma'o. Rashi explains like this. Let's say he pasted his dough on the inside of the pot, and then heated up the pot from the outside, as is typically done. Mo, what is Allah? Is this considered lechem? Is this a proper method of baking or not? Amar le. So Rabbi Zera responded to Rabba. My Emily, why would I ask him this question? Why would I ask Ula the shaila? Di aminile. I'm going to go ask him. You know what he's going to say? Amar le. Hi niu masi ilfas. This is exactly the masi ilfas, where there's a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rish Lakish. Okay. Amar le Rav Yosef Rabbi Zera. So now it's Yosef's turn. And he turns to Rabbi Zera and he says like this: Boy minei Ula. Please ask Ula the following shaila. Hidbik mibafnim. What if a person takes a pot and he pastes his dough on the interior wall of the pot, but vavuka kineg ma'o, he lights a fire inside the pot. So now we have the avuka, the actual flame, kineg opposite this dough, baking it directly. Ma'o, what is the halacha here? Perhaps this is different because we have direct heat coming from the fire onto the dough. Is that considered a proper baking process? Is that considered lechem? Amar lei. So once again, Reb Zera responded. This time it was Rabbi Yosef who posed the question. My Emily, why would I ask this question to the Rebbe, to Ula? Because if I would ask him, you know what he would say? Amar lei, roi v'aniyim ken. Most paupers conduct themselves in this manner. As Rashi explains, they don't have enough firewood. They take a pot, like a mini oven, place a dough, and then take some splinters of wood, light a fire inside the pot, and treat it like an oven. Of course, this is considered a proper baking procedure, and the resulting product is considered lechem. Let's see Rashi, 10 lines from the bottom of the oven. Vavuka connected. So this is the most recent shaila. We have a pot with some dough, and there's an avuka inside. Milamala. We have intense heat, heating it up, and creating the proper baking process. What is halacha? Should we treat it like an oven or not? It's intense heat. It's right there, baking directly onto the dough. And he responded, of course it's okay. They don't have enough firewood. Therefore they employ this method to expedite the baking process. You take a small pot, put a piece of dough, light a fire, that bakes. So of course that's considered afiyah and considered lech. Tosfos has a different pshat. He has a kasha on Rashi. Rashi learns that we're speaking about a pot. So in the first case, the shaila was he pastes his dough in a pot and places his pot on a fire. What is halach? So Tosfos, of course, that's the machlokes Reich and Shlokish. What was the question to begin with? That's Tosfos learns that we're speaking about pasting dough in an oven, not discussing a pot, discussing an oven. But rather than heating up the oven from within, which is a typical method, this fellow placed the fire on the outside. So the question is, do we treat it like oven baked? Or perhaps it doesn't have the halach of oven baked goods because the fire here is on the outside. You don't have that same intense heat that you have in a typical oven. And he responded, of course. It's not considered an oven, it's like merely baking inside a pot. And is dependent on machlokes Reich and Shlokish. Likewise, in the second case, says Tosfos, we're speaking about a oven, in which case he lit a fire inside, but he didn't preheat the oven, which is a typical process. They first preheat the oven, then paste the dough. So here we took a cold oven and lit a fire inside, and quickly pasted the dough. The question is it considered oven baked or not? And he responded, no, even in this case it's okay because the fire is directly affecting the dough and is baking it properly. Okay, time for a brief chazar of today's daf. We began with the brisa of ein oifen pas ava. According to Shammai, there's a concern. According to Basil, it's mutter. The Gemara concluded, we're not speaking about the thickness, we're speaking about the multitude of bread, the quantity. According to Shammai, it's a tirche yisera. You can't go ahead and bake so much bread. According to Basil, it's okay. We proceeded with the halacha of ein oisen striken of tzuyarn. You can't go ahead and produce the designed matzah. We're concerned about creating a delay in the baking process, which may result in chametz. According to the Chachamim, this is applied universally in all cases. According to Reb Tzadok, so Reb Tzadok was the one who responded that it's not necessarily universal, it depends. According to one version of the Gemara, only the Nachtem was very careful about designing his thing properly, which creates a great delay, and entails a concern of chametz. Whereas your commoner, Kol Adam, doesn't have that concern. And according to the next version, just the opposite. A Nachtem is more lenient because he has that form, that mold, which you can use to create the striken of tzuyarn very quickly without any delay. Whereas the commoner, the Kol Adam, would have a concern. Rabbi Yehuda concluded by saying this only applies to the gluska, the thick matzah, the fact that it's thick and you're designing it, that creates a delay in the baking process. But it's just a thin matzah, go ahead and design it without any concern. Since it's thin, will bake quickly and there's no considerable delay. We proceeded with a discussion regarding the concept of lechem. We know that matzah needs to be lechem oini. We know that only something which constitutes lechem is chayv and challah. The Gemara says like this: if something was sun-baked, all agree that's not called lechem. If you preheated a pot and then pasted your dough into it, that's like an oven, all agree that's lechem. If you took a pot, pasted your dough, and then heated the pot, according to Shlokish, that's not called lechem. As Rashi brings, the pasuk says, lachem b'tanur echad. An oven produces lechem, not a pot. Even that's called lechem. We learned about scalded, cooked flour. We have Bisham Mesilel, Rabbi Yehuda, we have the Chachamim. Chum say, unless it's oven baked, that's not called lechem. We proceeded with the case where he took this dough, which was cooked or baked in a pot, but then completed the baking process in a tanner, according to Tanakama, that's called lechem, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Unless the entire baking process took place in a tanner, that's not called lechem, and he learns it from a pasuk. What about bread which isn't fully baked? Matzah hina. What you do is you slice and you see. If there are no chutin pulling apart, then you know it's adequately baked and has a din of lechem. With regards to matzah, with respect to lachmei toida, and we concluded that even if it takes a pot, places a fire inside the pot, in which case the fire is directly affecting the dough, all agree that's considered a proper afiyah and has a din of lechem. Take care. Lots of atzlacha.